Welcome to the channel. It's your boy KJ, and today we're going to break down season 3 of... Now, following after season 2, the first episode of season 3 titled You're Not Laughing Now, Mark starts a training routine with the help of Cecil's guidance to prepare for the potential Viltrumite as quote-unquote the beating Anissa gave Mark elaborated to a much more scarier threat. But anyways, the beginning of the episode shows a fight scene between Mark and the President Child, who sadly celebrated a little too early, like Thor did with Thanos, thinking there was even a chance. Moving forward, Mark continues to show its increased levels of strength. I mean, bro literally was benching gravity. Even Rex was impressed, and that's a lot coming from him given his character. Thereafter, Cecil receives a call concerning the Declaration of Independence getting stolen. And I mean getting actually stolen. From there, he decides to send Invincible and Rexplode to go thwart the thieves, Dropkick and Fightmaster. Pay attention to this, as it's sure to come back. The fight scene between the two twins seems rather easy for Rex, but not as easily for his opponent like Invincible, as he tends to make fun of him in a way. He seems to be struggling, as you can may say, which we all know, come on Mark, don't do this to us this season. During this, Rexplode also elaborates to a bit of more interest on Adam Eve, who we all know has some sort of little bit of relationship or connection with Invincible. Hopefully that does happen. Anyways, the two are cut off from the appearance of Multipole, Duplicate's twin brother, who seeks vengeance for his sister's death. Supposedly she's dead, right? Mark, is trying to fight off the same guy, but Rex, not so much. And let's just say he's losing badly. Now, Mark, seeing this threat and impending doom of Rex, has no other choice but to take action and become more assertive. Yes, we want this. We want this Mark to stop holding back, as he flicks away Fightmaster with no effort, as he then proceeds to take a course of action and to attempt to save Rex's life. Unknowingly, Duplicate appears out of nowhere with the mortal and is still alive. Yay! But she could have came a bit earlier to save Rex's face from getting smashed into anything. I mean, the guy was looking like a hockey player for a second. Anyways, Duplicate's alive, and Mark doesn't care as he lets her know, basically, that her brother is going to prison. Keep attention to that. Mark constantly says this throughout the season about you going to prison. Yeah, he's going to carry on with that. It's a little bit of a joke for him, or not maybe, who knows. The Guardians then have a reunion where Ray and Duplicate are once introduced, nothing much there besides Black Samson stating his facts about family again. Bro is cringe, I swear, a little bit of stealing from the overall Fast and Furious entourage. But, hey, I'm not going to harm that guy. He can do what he wants. After this little reunion, a little crush grows in the making with Rexplode and Ray. Be sure to pay attention again to that cause, because you know what? My guy Rex knows what he's doing. As the plot continues, we see Oliver get his powers fairly quickly, given his, overall thrax and abilities, and he can learn at a much quicker rate. Man, I wish that was me. I'm struggling in school, and I'm trying to remember the simplest concepts, but I can't even do that. As going forward, the story continues, we see Mark asking for help from William and Rick, his overall boyfriend, about a little bit of advice on how he could confront Eve about his feelings. And in his perspective, he first believes that he should tell Eve about how the future Eve confessed her feelings toward him in the other dimension. We all know that is pretty dumb on Mark's side. He should never do that. Yeah. From there, they shoot over him to hovering over Eve's treehouse while questioning his decision, but Eve calls him out on it and encourages to stop being a weirdo and to come into the treehouse. Meanwhile, Doc Seismic, the friendly old man, the crazy old man, has some screws loose and manages to find his way back in every season, escapes from confinement, and kidnaps several superheroes using giant subterranean creatures. During this, Mark confronts Eve about his feelings, but fumbles so badly. Like, why didn't he just pay attention to William when asked earlier to not? Yes, and I know, guys, he did say it. He told her about the old Eve. Like, why, man? Come on, William was there even telling you. Rick, too, don't do it. Whatever. With that, Eve grows very angry towards Mark, and the dilemma kinda between them is a little bit tarnished. A little bit heated in a way. From there, Cecil kind of interrupted their overall connection of anger and drama telling them that all the heroes were captured. Thus, the two start flying away immediately to save the heroes, but are decimated quite frankly easily. Doc Seismic was able to make a joke out of it and at the same time beat and question Mark's strength yet again, as he was trying to do his best, quote unquote. From there, as a last option, Cecil ends up deploying Darkwing 2.0, as well as the Reaniman, which Mark has recently fought in the past, knowing his history. They end up subduing Doc Seismic, and in question, Mark considers what is going on. Why are these Reaniman? Why is Darkwing 2.0 still around? Why aren't they in prison, right? Anyways, this overall altercation intensifies, leading to Mark immediately rushing over back to the Pentagon to find Cecil. But before the episode ends, we get a little sneak peek of the Viltrumite prison, where Nolan and Alan the Alien form a little special bond. In this, Viltrumites begin testing Alan to uncover his source of strength and new power. But they are fairly horrible at doing this. Going into episode 2, titled A Deal with the Devil, the episode is a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions, actions, and moral dilemma, sprinkled with just the right amount of dark humor. So let's break it down, shall we? As the episode kicks off with a trip down memory lane featuring a young and spry Cecil Stedman, picture this: Cecil with a face smoother than baby's bottom struts into a quantable seaside town. He's on a mission to stop the dastardly duo, Knucklebuster and Force Fist. And no, they're not a rejected tag team from a wrestling show. They're part of the Order of the Fraying Fist, which is a group penchant on destroying, providing chaos, and a questionable taste in names, if you ask me. Well, Cecil, ever the optimist, enters the store. He then thinks that he has the upper hand. He tells everyone to leave, and little does he know that the store clerk was actually Knucklebuster in disguise. And guys, quite frankly, she kind of mimics a little bit of Harley Quinn in my perspective. But surprise, it's her, and she ends up having a fight with Cecil, and Cecil kind of gets a little bit of their hand, wins, until Force Fist obviously takes over and easily sweeps the floor with Cecil. Talk about bad customer service in my experience. Now, before the backup could arrive, they end up activating a weapon releasing a toxic gas, which, spoiler alert, is not a new fragrance line. Cecil, in a move that would make any superhero proud, contains the gas, but at the cost of his own skin. Literally, the gas gives him an impromptu chemical pill, leaving him looking like he lost a fight with a cheese grater. Fast forward, and Cecil finds himself in prison. How so? Well, let's just say he ended up killing Fight Force and Knucklebuster from the overall escapee of a lizardly guy. Now, rubbing elbows with the very villains he used to chase, it's like a twisted networking event, but instead of swapping business cards, they probably exchanging tips on world domination. Enter Director Radcliffe, who offers Cecil a promotion to the director of the GDA even after he went against his overall ruling. The catch? Cecil has to embrace the moral gray areas of superhero management. It's like being offered the CEO position, but realizing the company sells both cupcakes and weapons. Honestly, feels like a whole Wolf of Wall Street back in my day. Anyways, back in the present, Mark Grayson confronts Cecil about some questionable hiring decisions, namely employing D.A. Sinclair to make those Reaniman we saw in episode 1, a mad scientist with a hobby of torturing college students and turning them into cyborgs, and even so, adding an addition of Darkwing 2.0, a reformed villain, as supposed. It's like finding out your babysitter is a former arsonist. Trust issues are bound to arise. From there, Cecil, ever the pragmatic, believes in second chances. Mark, however, isn't buying it. Their disagreement escalates faster than a Twitter feud, leading to a physical showdown. Cecil uses a device implanted in Mark's ear to incapacitate him. Note to self, never accept free earbuds from secret government agencies. Mark, seeing refuge and possibly a good therapist, crashes literally into the Guardians of the Globe's headquarters. He pleads with them to remove the device from his ear. Cecil, not the one to be left out, teleports directly to the Guardians Globe's cave with the Reaniman. It's like bringing a tank to a knife fight. The Guardians are now stuck in the middle, forced to choose sides faster than kids in a dodgeball game. The ensuing battle is intense, with friendships tested and property damage that would make any insurance weep, especially State Farm. Just kidding. But in this ensuing battle, Mark is struggling to try to even fend off these Reanimen as they continuously pound and beat on his overall body. Except when it comes to the overall considering of robots' intelligence, he's able to stop the frequency, and Mark begins to brutally smash each Reaniman while pointing out to Cecil that their relationship is over. After this overall moment, we then cut to a scene showing Mark explaining to his mom as well as Oliver and even Eve that, a little bit of drama occurred between Cecil and, the Reaniman, and that he basically ended things with them, and that he threatened Cecil, and, if anything, if Cecil continued to even be around his family or even try to get near his family. And Oliver deciding that he should have, but obviously that isn't the case, given that he is still a child, still learning, so he doesn't really understand the value of life. He's more like his father, if you think about it right now. So he can side with his mom, and a little bit of support from Eve was demonstrated. Going back to the Guardians Glow, we see the team left fractured due to what happened, proving that even superheroes have workplace drama. Rex, Ray, Monster Girl, Rudy, and Bulletproof decide to leave the hopeless and weakest immortal, who, quote me if I'm wrong, hasn't won a single fight, and if anything, is a drama queen with a weird mustache. From there, we then catch Mark explaining to William and Rick on how D.A. Sinclair is actually not in prison at all. Yeah, that's some drama right there. Now, this overall situation kind of builds upon you, as it can show a bit of how Mark feels disgusted and that he kind of should have ended D.A. Sinclair's life when he should have had the chance. And even when Rick and William felt a little bit of tortured and traumatized from him being still not in prison, they understand that Mark's overall ability as a superhero is to provide kindness to the world and to be a good overall individual. And they see that they don't want him to go into that negative image. And Rick especially confronts Invincible about this, that they need more individuals like himself. We then shoot over to Rudy's original reason for leaving the Guardians of the Globe, and we all know he's sipping over Monster Girl big time. With that, we then get to see a little bit of a date that we are seeing with Paul and Debbie. Their first ever little occasion is a little bit rocky in the beginning, but they're able to kindly talk and discuss a little bit about their life. And Debbie is a little precautious about what she's about to say about Mark and Oliver's secret identity, as, let's just say, Paul kind of calls them special. And yeah, to me, not a good first date, in my opinion. Amidst the chaos, Eve faces her own personal issues, on crossroads. From there, we then end off the episode with a little bit of a snippet of Cecil as the new overall honcho boss. They don't respect him in the beginning, but he clearly states that he's not stupid and he's going to make sure they do respect him. Knowing Cecil, we all know back away, especially. Now, we then see Omni-Man making his first appearance on Earth. Cecil confronts him about it and explains why he's here at Earth. They end up getting a little good conversation, and he says to stick around given that, he could help the world in a way. We all know Omni-Man's true path in the beginning was quite demeaning. But as the episode ends, Mark confesses his feelings to Eve, proving that he does love her. And while the timing is about as good as proposing during a fire drill, Eve is left contemplating their future, where she eventually subsides into Invincible and does actually show her overall interest in him. And finally, man, come on, we've been waiting so long for this since season 1. I've been wanting them more than Amber Trust. Now, going into season 3, episode 3, titled You Want a Real Costume, right? We kick off with a heart-wrenching montage featuring 2 superhumans who, after losing their jobs and apartment, decide that robbing a bank is their best career move. It's like a twisted version of Breaking Bad, but with more spandex and fewer RVs. Their plan? Flawed. Their execution, even more so. Enter Bulletproof, who thwarts their heist faster than you can say bad life choices. They try to reinstall themselves back into the world as normal citizens, like we all know, Life ain't easy, thus desperation drives him back to crime, leading to a second botched bank robbery. This time, Mark, our beloved Invincible, steps in delivering a superhero smackdown. And just when you think things can get more chaotic, Oliver, aka Kid Omni-Man, crashes the party. It's like bringing your kid brother to a bar fight. Not advisable. We then cut toward Eve, who crashes into Amber, and they end up chatting for a little bit. It's not as awkward as you may think it would be, even though that, Eve basically took Invincible right then after, and he did move on pretty fast. After this, we then see a little bit of an exploration of the old abandoned teen building where the previous superheroes that left, the Guardians of the Globe, now explore, especially Ray and Rex. They had a little bit of chatty, a little bit of flirty, and Ray specifically liking a little bit of what Rex is bringing off, especially him showing his own room to her. With this, remember that one guy who got Invincible really beaten up in season 1? Well, he's back, and Titan, yes, it's that guy. He's now a honcho boss, apparently has to deal with breaking out this guy Multiple, right? This guy Multiple. Well, he has to do it for this Mr. Miyagi guy who can turn into a dragon, like from Game of Thrones. Will literally basically eat Titan if he doesn't do this. After some of that, we then catch up with Mark, and in his infinite wisdom, deciding to mentor Oliver in the art of superheroing. Picture Oliver, eager to prove himself, chooses the monarchy of Kid Omni-Man. Mark's reaction? Well, a little mix of horror and facepalm that could be heard across dimensions. As we all know, every human hates that guy right now. Mark also gets his blue suit, which looks a little cooler, and in the process, we are cut a little short off by the distress call at a prison where Titan sent his gangbanger villains to break out Multiple. Oliver's enthusiasm is commendable and rushes into battle. Mark's overall emotions are then getting tested as he has to watch his little brother and also fend off these amateur villains. So, leading to a classic I'm not mad, just disappointed moment as he ends up taking out the overall villains, but in doing so, Oliver almost died in the process, so he's a little bit disappointed about his brother, given that Oliver doesn't want to listen or pay attention to Mark at all. Meanwhile, in the realm of adulting, Debbie Grayson is dipping a little deeper into her toes back into the dating pool with her colleague Paul. Things are going swimmingly until she decides to drop the bombshell about her family's superhero identities. Eve moves back in with her parents, but with a firm approach to equality. Eve, you do you, girl. She ends up telling her father that, she's only going to stay as long as he's going to be respectful and kind about her superheroing. Anyways, we then cut to Mark's reaction to the revelation of his mom and Paul. On top of this, we cut to the overall media concept of the news sharing Invincible's new name. And Invincible is invincible. They just got his overall name wrong. Hopefully that changes, right? Eve also does make fun of him for this new nickname, and we find a peeping Tom at the same time. And from following moments after, the Mauler twins hatch a plan to launch an EMP device to disrupt global communications. The Guardians of the Globe attempt to intervene, but are swiftly incapacitated. Enter Mark, who steps into fighting the Mauler twins and still keeps holding back. He gets help from Oliver, but as they fight, the Mauler twins send out a nuke. Mark instructs Oliver to return home as he goes after the EMP. He manages to prevent the missiles launch from destroying the entire nation. However, Oliver doesn't listen and takes a more permanent approach by eliminating the Mauler twins for good. Sadly, I'm going to miss them, but there's a multiverse, so maybe Robert Kirkman will bring them back. Mark's return and is left in grappling with a more implication, while Oliver seems a little nonchalant as he literally ended the overall Mauler twins and could care less, reminiscing that he kinda is like his father. Anyways, Oliver runs away into, I don't even know where he think he going. He ain't gonna escape this one. But anyways, he runs away. Mark ends up catching up to him, and they overall have a little discussion. A little bit of emotions are, resented. Oliver
ends up just expressing to, why he thinks that life isn't important, that why his life and Mark's life are more important than any other individual's lives. His brother then also instills that that should not be the case, and that everyone's life, no matter if they're a villain or enemy, no matter what, they're all important. Like anybody should be, right? It's a little brothers moment, one for the brothers out there, right? We then catch him explaining to Eve about what happened, and Eve also presents the Invincible War comment again. From there, it also leads to a little bit of an apology from Debbie, as she ends up telling Mark that she was wrong and that she shouldn't have done it without obviously his approval. Nearing the end of the episode, just when you think the Grayson household couldn't get more chaotic, Mark discovers a drone spying on him. His attempt to catch it results in a mini explosion because nothing says welcome home like a detonating surveillance device. Unbeknownst to him, the puppet master behind this peeping Tom, none other than Angstrom Levy, freaking dude's back, from the presumed dead and ready to stir the plot more. Ugh, not him again. Now, going into episode 4 titled You Were My Hero, we begin to see Kate and Rex bonding as she prepares to make a meal for the new teen team. They don't have a name, so let's just call them that. From there, Mark breaks into the Pentagon with no strategy at all, just kill first and ask questions later. Now, it's not very bright of the guy, but he seeks to know who is spying on him, and given his trust issues, assumes it's Cecil. The two bash comments toward one another, and Mark eventually flies away. We then catch ourselves in a peaceful and loving setting of Paris, but our boy Mark can't seem to catch a break. Just when he thought that he could enjoy a romantic date with Eve in Paris, two peculiar fellows, Fightmaster and Dropkick, crash the date. These gents hail from the future and know they're not here to warn us about the perils of investing in cryptocurrency. If only we knew about Bitcoin. No, they need Mark's help to dethrone a tyrannical ruler in their timeline, which in this case is the future. Upon arrival, Mark discovers that the evil tyrant everyone is afraid of is none other than Immortal. Yes, the same Immortal who's been around longer than your grandma's secret cookie recipe. The one guy who can't win a fight. The one guy who we keep bashing on. Turns out he's the guy. So basically, centuries of leadership have taken a toll on him, and Immortal's ruling style has become less of a benevolent leader and more of a dictator with a penchant for dramatic monologues. He blames Mark for abandoning Earth, and in a plot twist worthy of a telenovela, begs Mark to end his misery as he is the only one strong enough to do it. What ensues is a battle of epic proportions. Imagine Thanksgiving dinner debates, but with more punching and less passive-aggressive comments about life choices. Immortal, desperate for release, pushes Mark to his limits after a skirmish that would make even the Hulk say, maybe we should talk this out. Mark reluctantly grants Immortal's wish, leading to a somber victory and the death of our mortal, just in a future sense. After this emotionally charged episode, Mark returns to the present, seeking solace in Eve's company. Their relationship deepens as we see the two travel around the world and proving that every superhero needs a shoulder to lean on, and perhaps someone to remind them to take out the trash. Switching the gears to our favorite Viltrumite, Nolan, aka Omni-Man, who's been having a less than stellar vacation in a high security space prison. Just as his execution looms, talk about a bad day, Alan the Alien stages a jailbreak that would make any action movie director proud. With the unexpected assistance of Battle Beasts, they fend off Viltrumite guards. Alan encourages Nolan to help, and the two fight against the Viltrumite, inevitably winning in the end. Nolan drops a bombshell that the Viltrumite's empire is down to fewer than 50 pure-blooded members. Looks like the Viltrumites aren't as invincible as their name suggests. What happened to Battle Beast after this? Well, he went flying in space.
Don't worry, he's not dead. But as we shoot over back to Mark and his little love fest with Eve that went quite well, we see Debbie trying to get in his room, trying to see what all that noise and commotion was about. We then see Mark tell Eve that they should get their own place, hinting to something a little bit more obvious, am I right? Going into episode 5, titled This Was Supposed to Be Easy, we start off with a little bonding moment of Titan and his daughter. Then we shoot over to Multipol's own attempt at breaking out of prison, which doesn't go quite as well for him. Duplicate reappears, expressing her concerns for Multipol, as we see a little origin clip of the past younger selves. Mark and Adam Eve have breakfast together with the family, as Oliver consistently spills the beans about Eve and Mark's little playtime. During this, Mark expresses his truth about moving out of the house. Debbie feels a little sad, so does Oliver, but hey, that's life, right? Mark and Eve then begin to discuss their plans for moving out, where Eve becomes the individual who takes a more organized approach to their superhero work by launching their own operation, Invincible Inc. Their goal is to provide official, structured hero services, starting with a pitch to a prison in hopes of landing their first contract. The meeting goes surprisingly well, and they begin their new roles, patrolling and responding to threats. It's a clear attempt at maturing and taking control of their lives, but naturally, things quickly spiral out of control. Back to Titan, Mr. Liu begins to get tested and warns Titan he has 24 hours or else he and his family will become literal dragon poop. Meanwhile, Oliver, Mark's younger half-brother, sneaks out of the house and finds new friends of his own. He is starting to test his powers and independence. He's eager to help people in his own way, even if that means using some childish tactics like humiliating bullies rather than fighting them head-on. His behavior reflects his youth, but it also hints at his growing desire to define his own identity as a hero. Rex surprises Ray with a dinner. I'm telling you, this guy's a stud. Anyways, they have their first awkward date and drink some old wine. Shooting back to Titan, a desperate father who has no choice but to comply and seeks information from his old boss, Machine Head, who lets him know there's no way out of it, and he has to pay attention, and is forced to listen to Mr. Lee. Forced out of options, he attacks the prison, hoping to catch the attention of his old friend Invincible. The two talk, and Titan explains his good, but yet again, Mark states, you go into prison phase, but sadly, Titan, a smart guy, escapes from Invincible. Eve expresses to Mark he did the right thing by turning down Titan, which I don't disagree with. If you left me in a fight, I would think twice about a friendship deal. We then shoot back to Titan getting rejected by Isotope, then thrown off the building by Mr. Liu. Mr. Liu takes matters into his own hands and attempts to bust Multipole out himself as his Nebraska-sized bodyguard watches over him. Mark and Eve become entangled in this conflict as they attempt to stop the prison break and face off against Mr. Liu, who pushes them to their limits. Multipole, seeing his escape, manages to successfully get away as he secretly evades Eve. Just when the battle seems lost, Machine Head intervenes and destroys the dragon with a shot to the noggin, Mr. Liu's head. It's an unexpected twist that saves everyone involved, but leaves more questions about Machine Head's motives and influence. Titan thanks Mark again for his help, but Mark's only goal is, you know what it is, guys, you're going to prison. I swear bro needs to stop trying. Anyways, the experience shakes both Mark and Eve. After narrowly escaping death, they question whether moving in together and building a life around superhero work is something they truly need right now. They decide to postpone their plans, realizing the risks they face are too high to ignore. As the episode ends, we see Titan dropping out of the order and a little brief moment of duplicate recognition that her brother has successfully escaped. As we enter into episode 6, titled All I Can Say Is I'm Sorry, the episode opens with a flashback to the destruction caused during the Omni-Man vs. Invincible battle in Chicago. A pivotal moment that left countless people dead. Among the victims were a woman named Jess and her young daughter, Gretchen, who died as collateral damage. The story that introduces us to Scott Duvall, their grieving brother and uncle, who has never recovered from the loss and ultimately blames Invincible. Scott, a scientist working for the GDA that specializes in anti-superhuman technology, leads his way into finding and seeking his revenge. Mark, meanwhile, is doing his best to stay grounded. He's overwhelmed, tired, and trying to make the most of his relationship with Eve while balancing the growing weight of public perception and the responsibility of teaching his younger brother. Shooting back to Scott, his growing weight of depression leads him unable to cope with his grief. He blames Invincible for what happened and transforms himself into Powerplex, a vengeful figure powered by stolen energy tech. His goal isn't world domination or even revenge in the traditional sense. He simply wants Mark to acknowledge the pain he caused and to feel the same level of loss that he does. From there, we shoot to a dinner in the Grayson household, where Paul tries his best at being a father figure, but realizes his accomplishments are nowhere near Mark, Eve, and Oliver. Debbie reasons with him, letting him know that he needs to just be himself. And I personally agree, Don't be something you're not. Trust me, it don't go well. Anyways, we see Powerplex first dive into the life of a villain, but fails in the first attempt to get recognized and ends up looking more like a fool until he nearly unalives Shapesmith, who was imposing as invincible. Mark, watching all this, chooses not to care and focuses more on his life instead. Powerplex returns home only to cause more trauma to his son and his wife, who quite frankly looks just like Jane from Breaking Bad, am I right? She tries telling him that he shouldn't give up and to keep trying. From there, we shoot over to Mark and his family going to the memorial for the individuals who passed in Chicago. After this, we see a quick reminder of Rudy's intelligence as he finds a cure for Monster Girl, further increasing his connection with her. While Ray confesses to Rex that she wants to quit the superhero gig. Shifting back to Mark, you remember that balance that Mark's been trying to maintain in his life? Well, it's shattered when Scott begins confronting him during a public memorial for the victims of Chicago. The confrontation quickly turns tense, and while Mark tries to de-escalate, he's clearly out of his depth emotionally. So, Eve steps in and shuts down Powerplex's ploy to achieve his goal. However, Powerplex escapes from the GTA as if they can ever keep someone locked up. I mean, everyone escapes, man, from the GTA, looks like. Come on, man. Going back to Rex and Ray, they share their emotions for each other, and Ray is content with leaving, but tries to convince Rex, but he's not buying it. He confesses to her that the superhero life is all he knows, and that he still wants to be with Ray, but also wants to help save lives. The two share a kiss, and we all can see where this is going. Good on you, Rex. Things then take a darker turn when Scott fakes his own son and wife's kidnapping in a desperate attempt to get Mark's attention. Invincible responds by trying to relieve Scott's moral intentions, but he's not buying it. Powerplex plan spirals out of control, leading to a moment of pure devastation where he accidentally hurts his own family using his unstable powers. In the aftermath, Mark doesn't respond with violence. Instead, he chooses empathy, confronting Scott and acknowledging the harm caused by superhuman battles. The episode ends on a quiet but powerful note as Scott is taken into custody and continues to despise Invincible, blaming him for even killing his family. Now, we all know that's some BS. Before the episode ends, we see Angstrom leaving yet again, but with many alternate variations of Invincible, hinting the Invincible War is next. In episode 7, titled What Have I Done?, we start off with a shell-shocking moment of Angstrom not actually sucking, surprisingly. Am I right? Well, we see that he managed to pull himself back to the dimension of the extremely intelligent beings known as the Technicians, who originally upgraded his body as seen in Season 2. They rebuilt him once again, but this time to their own specifications. You'll find out later what I'm talking about. Anyways, back to where we left off, we see countless other variations of Invincible leaving Angstrom's portals to destroy and unleash their pain. However, before this intense moment, we cut to Mark and Eve cuddling while Eve explaining to Mark that Powerplex wasn't all there and that Mark did the right thing and that he shouldn't blame himself in the first place. Now, back to the action. We see all the Invincibles exploring all around the world, wreaking havoc and destroying everything and anything in their path. We then shoot toward Rex and Ray bonding once again as Rex helps Ray move into an apartment. A little explosion occurs behind them and Rex immediately takes action, but not leaving before he gets some sugar. Mark and Eve receive a call from Invincible Inc., but not what they were expecting as Mark shows up only to fight Mohawk Mark. The battle between the two is interesting, but still our beloved Invincible manages to win even with the help of some superheroes who originally thought he was the bad guy. Cutting to Oliver, we see him take off to help, while Debbie wishes him safety and precaution. Over in the GTA, Cecil and Donald don't look too good, and the facility might as well be a hoarder house after fighting off the variant Flax and Mark. They know they need help, so they begin to call on every available superhero. Returning to Oliver, we see him helping, but he puts himself in trouble only before friendly foes are able to rescue him. Immortal is fighting another variant No Goggles Mark, who he looks to be winning as he crash slams him into the feminist mummy's lair. Honestly, don't know where they're going with that plot scene. Anyways, we catch Mark and Eve fighting Hoodvincible Mark, who is losing badly, but when Omni Mark shows up, the story changes, and our OG Mark starts to have to fight two Marks at the same time. That being said, Mark is forced to having to protect Eve or die trying, as he cannot fight both of them at the same time. However, out of nowhere, Reanimen pop out, killing off Invincible off screen, but allowing Mark and Eve to escape. Back to the Guardians of the Globe lair, we see No Goggles Mark having the time of his life as he decimates the whole team, practically unaliving everyone. But his foolishness leads Darkwing 2.0 to take him to the Shadow Realm, disappearing the two for good now. Over at the college, William is saved by Rick, given his newfound strength, being a Terminator in a way. Bear with me, a lot to sum up, but back at the Teen Team HQ, the team is getting brutally owned by Retro Invincible, forcing Rex to make a ballsy move that allowed the other members of his team to escape, while he fights off Retro Invincible, but sadly, it isn't enough, and he's forced to use his powers on himself to kill off Retro Invincible. Coming from this, we enter into a Billie Eilish song that made the whole story even much more heartwarming. I too wanted to cry as we flashed all the destruction that these douchebag Marks have caused. Back at the GDA, Cecil confronts Mark to continue his fight, but he tells him no, as he's afraid of Eve's own condition and not being able to protect her when he's gone. We then pan out to Engstrom watching his toys as they hover over the decimated Earth. He then tells them to meet at the Prime Mark's house, where they discuss but turn on Engstrom. Engstrom, being a sucker and 2 steps ahead, uses his little robot cameras to push him into the empty dimension. Cecil then finds Engstrom's location, and finally Mark agrees to go fight. He meets Engstrom in yet again a close but not really close fight at all, as Mark outsmarts and outforces his way to nearly ending Engstrom once and for all. But Oliver steps in, which in my opinion is the reason why Engstrom used this to get away. Going to Engstrom, he demands to be fixed by the technicians as part of his arm came off. But let's just say they outsmart him and tell him that they are in charge now, given his failures to keep a promise for them. Like he can honestly keep anything. Anyways, we then shoot back to our world where Mark returns to the GDA to see Eve's condition, as Cecil interrupts his moment to tell him to help in New York from all the recent destruction and devastation. He then follows orders for once, and during that, he ends up catching eyes with Powerplex again. Oliver, however, steps in to help his brother, but Mark tells him that he has to just easily put him down and hold him down. But as Powerplex's powers are gone, he ends up using his words that are more devastating to Mark, as he calls him out for all the destruction that has occurred, as every other superhero looks down upon him. Going back to the hospital, we catch a moment of Mark meeting Eve's parents for the first time, where Eve's mom confronts Mark, telling a really weird story that made no sense. I don't know, honestly, kind of sus, but from this, we see Immortal waking up after dying again and telling Donald he's done. He's completely out of it and will not join the Guardians ever again, and wants to start a family with Duplicate. Cutting to Cecil again, he knows the limited superheroes he has left and asks Mark to become the leader of the Guardians of the Globe, which he turns down, obviously, given his feelings towards Cecil, even after he did, help Mark. To end off the episode, Mark begins helping the rebuilding process as a friendly foe, okay, not so quite friendly, shows up, and yes, you guessed it, it's Conquest!
Dun, dun, dun.
Voiced by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, has the best phrase we all won't forget. Ready for my arrival, you worm. He then literally launches at Conquest, and that ends the episode. Going into episode 8, we start off with a quick slam to both Conquest and Mark, yet this doesn't last long, as Conquest easily takes Mark down. In this, we see Conquest explaining his glory in fighting and his willingness to not care about protocols, unlike Anissa did. But Mark doesn't care and sends Conquest flying, but not so far as you would think. This guy is on some next level trend. Mark begins to push Conquest, leveling buildings, but yet Conquest, unfazed, begs for more. So Mark, being a good boy, does just that. He takes Conquest up to space, using possibly all his strength to give him a bloody nose. But Conquest kind of sussly blows a heart-shaped kiss to him with some of that blood. In the most disgusting way, begins to show his level of power to Mark, literally implying that he has already won and is certain of it by brutally smashing Invincible's face, shattering his goggles. Bro really needs to make stronger goggles. They always be getting destroyed. Anyways, the blow he takes sends him flying well across a state practically. Back at the house, Debbie begins to worry as Paul tends to her mental state, and Oliver wants to help, so he proceeds to fly toward the action, but sadly just can't keep up. Mark ain't doing so hot, and with the most animated, luscious hair we've seen in the show, tries to reason with Conquest in his path, but Conquest is not buying it and continues to choke Mark. But in a brief save, Oliver comes to his rescue, but again, we know he stands no chance. So here comes his big brother to the rescue, sending Conquest away with a kick to the face. Mark pushes Oliver away, telling him to leave again as if he would listen, but Conquest, unpleased, takes Mark and begins to question Invincible's Viltrumite power as he continues to pound on him. But even with Conquest not fighting back, Mark still stands no chance. Cutting towards Cecil, we see a conversation between him and D.A. Sinclair as Cecil needs his reanimate as soon as possible, but Sinclair says that it can't be rushed. Cecil, infuriated, walks right out. Eve wakes up from the hospital and sees Mark on live television fighting Conquest. She demands to leave and go and help. Back to the action, Mark takes a break, if you can say a break, while Oliver nearly gets split in half. Mark prevents this with a split-second save as Cecil rushes to bring Oliver back to GDA. We then see Eve confront Cecil about leaving, while Cecil basically tells her what happens out there is going to be on her. Back to Mark, we again encounter another subway incident, except on the beach instead. Man, I would have hated to visit that beach after this. Again, this world, being human, Mark's life, must suck. One day you be talking, enjoying yourself, the next your arms are gone. Anyways, Eve teleports to Mark, and Mark doesn't want her there, obviously. However, Conquest gives Invincible another break to this, and this time to his legs. He then begins to attack Eve, who at first puts up a considerable fight, unlike in the comics, but after some time, still sadly gets her face bashed into. Mark, seeing this, gets emotionally triggered, and with his combination of adrenaline and Viltrumite DNA, fights twice as hard and strong, pushing his body beyond its extreme. This time, Mark isn't messing around, and the sides turn for a little, but he's not paying attention. As he looks over to Eve, he sees that she's coming back to life. However, Conquest takes the opportunity and chance to pull Invincible and get the upper hand. He then begins to create a dramatic monologue of his overall feelings and expressions of sadness as he nearly chokes Mark to death. Luckily, Eve, after regaining back her powers, beams Conquest with a great level of energy. Eve passes out, and Conquest, now pissed, says he's going to make sure she permanently goes away. Mark then gets really angry at this point and says to not touch her and begins to headbutt Conquest's face, killing him as a pose. The Guardians show up to this mess, but they're a little too late, as obvious. After nearly a couple of days, we see Mark waking up back in the hospital where Eve is by his side. Debbie and Paul walk in, where Debbie expresses her pain for having her son to have to be around all of this and never wanting the suffering he continues to endure. Cecil interrupts, and Mark asks to see the body of Conquest, where he then takes him to, and after seeing this, he requests Conquest to be burned to ash. But we all know Cecil, he ain't gonna do that. Shooting over to Rex's funeral, Rudy changes his name to Rex, and Eve confesses Rex being her everything. Invincible is there to support her, even with a smile, which is crazy given his friend just died. He and Eve return to Mark's room for yet another love scene, where we all get to see a little snippet of Eve's power changing and a little suggestion to a little bit of spoilers. As the season ends, we see what is to be expected in season 4. Seckwigs, Battle Bees, Conquest still being alive, what? Also a new plot scene with Darkblood, and finally a confirmation that Mark will do anything to protect his family and will not be holding back. Let's see if that's actually going to happen, guys. It was a great season, and I'm very excited for season 4 to come out. Be sure to subscribe and leave follow down suggestions on future recaps you would love me to do. Thank you for your time and attention. KJ out.